Hello and welcome to Coronacrisis. My name's David Haythornthwaite and I'm the chairman of AFC Fylde, and over the next few weeks and months I'm hopefully going to take you through what goes on behind the scenes of a non-league football team at times like this. We're going to discuss all the issues regarding behind the scenes, the players, off-field staff, all the things that contribute to the running of the club, and how we're dealing with the issues that are being thrown at us on a daily and weekly basis, so that it gives you a really good insight to the club and the running of clubs in general. So I look forward to you joining me on this journey.
David, thanks once again for joining us as we look behind the scenes at AFC Fylde. I think a talking point certainly over recent weeks amongst the fan base and amongst other clubs has been the retained list. We'd like to keep everyone updated and learn what players might be staying, who might be going. So is there any update you can provide on that?
Yeah, I think that it's been a talking point. I mean, it is a talking point always at this time of year, because we have to submit our retained list, as it's known, to the league. And if we don't do that, we can be in danger of losing the players. So they need to know that list. So we've submitted that list this week, finalised it. Well, there was a couple of things not quite right, but yeah, our final list of retained players has gone in. And it's pertinent this time of year because in most professional contracts, football contracts, run from the 1st of July to the 30th of June every year. There would be a lot in non-league football that don't. Some clubs part-time in our league, the contract will end May the 1st a lot of times if they're not in the players. So those players wouldn't be paid until they come back again into training in the middle of July. But professional contracts, players who are on those type of contracts, usually run from July the 1st to June the 30th. And that applies to the majority, well, really all of our players, apart from one that we took on loan. So in obviously sending in your retain list, you by definition decide who's not currently on that retain list. And that list has been a difficult list in these circumstances, because nobody, with the uncertainty of not knowing when football's going to start again, never mind behind closed doors, but in its real format, then nobody can commit to paying wages to a player in July, August, September, October, at least November and December maybe, when there's no income. It would be totally suicidal to do that, and it would also be just stupid to do it. So, as I said in my last interview last week, we're going to have a situation where there's going to be a lot of players July the 1st without a club. Not just in the non-league scene, but also in League 1, 2, I'm sure higher up. We've already got indications that clubs are contacting us. Hull City were contacting us about a couple of players they have that normally they would keep, but in the circumstances, they're sort of thinking of letting go, just as an example of how high up the pyramid it goes. So we've had to make some tough decisions, and we've therefore there's some sort of updates on particular ones. First of all, Montrose. Lewis is moving on. Lewis has I think found a new club. We're pretty certain. I won't mention that with respect to the club in question. I can tell you that it's a Midlands club, a quite well-known club, not Aston Villa, but it's a well-known club that's been in the football league, and I think that if he manages to secure himself a deal down there, I think that will be good for him. They're a decent club as far as I know. So Lewis will be moving on. I want to put on record my thanks to Lewis. I think he's going back to nice people and decent, honest people. Lewis is one of those. He hasn't had a great time since he's been to Fylde. He spent the whole of last season. Sorry, the 18-19 season. Injured really. I think maybe played 5 or 6 games. I don't think he might have played a few more than that, but he was plagued by injury and eventually had an operation, and really this season just never got going. I think probably there was too many players of the same ilk in that sort of position. We had a lot of, shall we say, midfield players. And Lewis just never got going, and you know, I felt sorry for him. I say he always had a good attitude. He had a smile on his face. You know, he's a gentleman. He's polite. I can't say enough about Lewis, and I'm sorry it didn't work out with him, you know, at Fylde. But I wish him every success wherever he goes. And if he ends up, I say, in the club in question, then I'm sure that he'll have a big impact there. And I really hope he does, and sort of can kickstart his career again. So that's Lewis. With regard to the rest, Danny Philliskirt also's contract comes to an end. Danny is a player that has been an ever-present for us. As opposed to Lewis, I don't think, you know, he's hardly missed a game with injury that I can remember. He certainly, you know, if I had to put 2 or 3 on the team sheet every time, you know, his name would be there. He's a fantastic footballer. You know, he takes care of the ball. He very rarely gives it away. Will always be in my mind for scoring the winning goal at Solihull away to take us to Wembley. And again, a really, really true professional, comes from a footballing family. He's very honest. I think he's told us that you know, he's had interest, and maybe even offers from a league club. I'm not surprised about that. I mean, the guy's a quality footballer, and ultimately, you know, we'd like to keep him, but because of the situation, we can't guarantee him anything at the moment, and it wouldn't be right for me to go and spend that money when I can't afford to pay the existing players that I've got. So we hope Danny, we can persuade him to stay, and maybe if the offers that he's been made aren't maybe as good as they are, sometimes when you arrive there to put pen to paper, maybe there's a few caveats in there he doesn't like, and nothing more would I love to see Danny Philliskirt wearing a white shirt when we kick off next season. But if he does depart, again, thanks Danny. You know, you've been a great player for us, and fans have loved you, and you've given 110%. And again, true gentleman, nice guy. So then takes us down to, I suppose, then we got Mark Yates. Mark's a local lad, lives in Lytham, someone we tried to get for quite a long time. Was in and out of the side, really. I think both under Charlie and under... and also under Jim. Again, maybe from our point of view was a knee-jerk reaction signing. That's nothing against Mark, but I just don't think the way we played football suited Mark's type of play. So nothing against Mark. Again, lovely guy, great to have in the dressing room from what I've heard. And we're still talking to Mark. We haven't offered him a new deal as yet. And again, you know, there may be more than one way to skin the cat. But I think, again, with not knowing what division we're going to be playing in is also, you know, compounds our problem of who we might sign and who we're not. So we're talking to Mark. We haven't made, shall we say, a final decision yet. And I think that as soon as we've got clarity of where we'll be, that will help us maybe be able to have that discussion with Mark. But at the moment, Mark's will probably be departing the club in beginning of July. Moving on from that, we've then got Luke, who's out of contract. Luke Burke. Luke's a great young player. I think he's got a good future in front of him. We want to try and get Luke on board and work out a deal for him as well. And I know that Jim and John T are talking to Luke about how that can work out. Again, I'm talking here about people who specifically aren't on our retained list that we've had to submit at the moment. They can be added later, but at the moment they're not. We've got young James Cragen. Again, came in, local lad, went, Blackpool boy, and, didn't work out for him. Again, we probably had too many midfielders, and he went back up. He played a lot of a lot of football in Scotland, as people know, so he went back to Scotland again. I think he went back to Arbroath, did he? And played probably the last, wasn't the last third because it didn't complete, but certainly I think about November time probably went up to Scotland and played up there where he played before people knew him. Again, great lad, good lad to have around, but currently at the moment as things stands we won't be offering him a new contract, certainly under current conditions. We've also got Tom Miller, who came in sort of halfway through the season, and Tom's deal runs out, and as far as my understanding is, I don't think, again, with the current circumstances, I don't think we'll be keeping on hold of Tom, and I think the same applies to Dan Leverkusen. So all those players at the moment will be departing, or certainly departing our payroll, which is important, with my financial hats on now, is really, really important to us. It takes a lot off the wage bill, and that's going to be important going forward, and we don't want to add to it. Just a couple of things I want to cover, because some couple of fans have said, well, you're talking about players' contracts and things like that. Why would you say Nick Horton, for example, give him a new contract? Well, it's very simple. Number one is he's our, my opinion, probably our most talented player. I mean, he's our best player, but he certainly could be both our best and talented, depending on opinion. But secondly, we paid Salford $40,000 for Nick, and when you've paid a lot of money like that, you've got to protect the asset. Thirdly, we'd had a lot of interest for Nick from a couple of clubs at the end of the season. I mean, I think there's no doubt about it. Jim Bentley had got the best out of Nick, and we were really starting to see Nick perform consistently. I think before that he'd maybe been a 40-minute player or a 60-minute player, but I thought he started to play really, really well, and I felt that he needed a run in the team and someone giving him the confidence or showing confidence in him to do that. So that's why we protected ourselves. The same goes with if Tom had been out of contract as well. Tom Walker, we paid Salford, funnily enough, we paid them a lot of money as well for him. So you've got to protect that asset. So there are times when it may not appear to make sense, but you've got to do it. So that's why we did that, for example, with Nick, which may sometimes seem at odds with what I'm saying about players' contracts and wages. So I hope that's people understand that.
And you'd just like to reiterate the point, just to clear it up. You're not saying it's the end for any of these players. It may readdress it in the future.
Well, I think that obviously they've got a situation, a really difficult situation now, where they've got to try and find a new club. I think that in the case of Lewis, it sounds like he has done it. In the case of Danny, it would be. I mean, Danny would have been, if we could have done something with Danny, he'd have been on our retain list. But we can't do something with Danny, shall we say, at where he wants to be at this time. And I think he's been offered something where he wants to be. So if that doesn't work out for Danny, as I said earlier, I'll be glad to see him wear a white shirt. The other guys have all got a chance to throw their hat in the ring, and we don't know where everything's going to find its level on wages. But a lot of these were quite well paid, footballers, and we've got to protect that. But we won't be offering contracts from July the 1st. I say it's impossible to do that. So we want to have the best squad, the minimum squad, that we can on contract. And obviously we've got some contractual obligations. We've got 2-year contracts with people. So there are people who are entitled to the next year of the contract. So it's a balance between the two, Adam.
And just moving on, there'll be a couple of staff changes behind the scenes as well. Fans will be used to seeing certain figures on the bench that may not be there.
Yeah, Sean, our physio is moving on. Again, not coronavirus related. We decided that I think Sean had come down. He'd been with us for 3 years since he moved down from Barrow. He lives in Blackburn. Great character is Sean. Likes a glass of red wine, and we had those quite a few nights on a Friday on away trips. But I think it was time. I think that so say Jim comes in, you've got a new manager, and you've got John T, and I think the general consensus, it was probably time for Sean to move on. And again, I want to thank Sean. I think he's been fantastic for Fylde in the time he was there. And I say, decent guy, good Lancashire lad. Honest as days long, and we looked after Sean when he had a little bit of a problem, and I think he remembers that. But no, sad to see Sean go, but we've got to move on and make the right decisions.
There'll be another member leaving.
Yeah, and also Jake Simpson. Jake's decided to move on. We managed to keep hold of Jake. Again, I think Jake's one to look for the future. I think it's a name you'll see around. Of course, he's the son of Paul Simpson, one of my all-time heroes when I was a Blackpool fan. And Paul's been down a few times, and he's obviously got a nice manager's job himself, looking after the England young lads. And Jake again, a good, decent human being. He set a new standard at Fylde when he came in under Charlie, and it's been great. He's usually first in every day before everybody else, and he's really raised the standard. He's always been a bit of a problem because his girlfriend lives up in Carlisle. He's kind of from that area originally, and I think certainly when COVID hit, it probably made him realise, maybe the importance of family and being away from them and all those kind of things. So unfortunately, Jake's leaving, and I'm really sad to see him go. One of the things he will be doing, and he departs at the end of June. Sean's already departed, probably 6 weeks ago now. But Jake's contract, which we're sort of honouring, runs till the end of June. But this next few weeks, he will be helping us. He's helping John T put together all the pre-season plans, whenever that pre-season may be, in the absence of anybody else at the moment. And in both these cases, we're not going to replace them at the moment. We're not going to take anybody on because, again, we've no money to spend. We haven't got a penny. Every penny we've got to look after. So they won't be replaced immediately, and they won't be replaced certainly till we know we've got football on the horizon. So Jake's been asked or been tasked with designing the programme, so we know what to do if we haven't got someone in place and football starts faster than we think. But he's also importantly been tasked with designing our new gym. One of Jake's big beefs, and rightly so, was that he felt he couldn't prepare players a lot of times because we didn't have a gym. Those of you know it's under the away concourse. It's not perfect, but with the acquisition of the rest of Mill Farm, which I talked about a few weeks ago, then there's a lot of empty buildings there, which could be converted into a gym. So Jake's going to visit those next week with John T, I believe, and have a look and pick a suitable building. And once we've picked a suitable building, then he will design the gym for us. Again, we're not going to start building the gym. We haven't got any money. But what we will do is have the plan in place, and so that's part of Jake's remit before he leaves. So and you know, I'm appreciative of him agreeing to do that, and that'll be very helpful because he knows probably better than anyone else what's required and the right equipment, etc. What footballers require in a gym is slightly different than, shall we say, you'd see in your normal gym. So yeah, that's the situation with those two, and probably another one to add to the list we should talk to is Ian, our groundsman, and again, Ian, we had to put on a 3-day week and you know, reduce his hours, and unfortunately, you know, there's no end in sight for him either. There's not a ground to look after, so to speak, so we can't justify paying him more than those 3 days. And Ian's, I think, been approached by someone to go into, I understand, a sort of consultancy role. So Ian will be working his notice, and we'll be, you know, looking for a replacement groundsman. You can't go away with having no groundsman throughout the season, because we've got quite a lot of, you know, the all-weather pitches need looking after. Kellamar Park needs looking after. And again, I want to thank Ian. He's a Wigan lad. He was working down south. We gave him the opportunity to get back up. He's probably like us, disappointed that he's got to move on. But again, Ian, you know, one of those good lad, honest, came, you know, was always at work. You know, you never find him around the corner having a fag sat on his backside. He wasn't one of those kind of players, people. So, yeah, sad to see some of those people move on, Adam. But as I said when I started this all those weeks ago, look, there's going to be casualties. There's got to be casualties because there's no money, and eventually something has to give. But I want to thank them all the players I've mentioned, and thank all the staff there, because they've all been great for Fylde.